Good morning and welcome to our live talk program. This is Lloyd Grubb here, your host on Revive Reform Radio, doing our live talk program covering current events on this year, Thursday. And today I'm looking at the topic with you. Israel is an excellent execution of the principles of colonial countries. So, Israel is an excellent execution of the principles of colonial countries. Welcome again. Hope you had a blessed night rest. Let us pray. Our Father who art in heaven, I thank you, dear Lord, for your word and for the blessings, dear Lord, of knowing thee. Pray, dear Lord, that you may be with us as I study these things or share these things with those listening. May you bless my mind and their minds for Christ's sake. Amen. So I'm looking at this topic here, which will continue with what we've been talking about this week, which is the theme, which is when they killed the prophets, thinking they got rid of the problem. And so this is what we're looking at here. What happens when a country kill the prophets, thinking they got rid of the problem? That whatever the problem is, it was really, if they get rid of the prophets, it will solve it. What happened when this happens? And this is what we're looking at here. And so this is what we're looking at here. Just see if I can sort out a technical problem that's happening. Well, I'm good here and I'm good there. So good. So what happens when they kill the prophets is what we're looking at here. So I'm going to talk about Israel and in the form of colonization, the principles of colonization as I've studied over the years. And you will note that everything I'm about to say to you, and this is going to be the first part of my presentation here this morning, or my talk here this morning. So most of it I'm not going to be dealing with this concept. I'm just because it's very simple. So I'll show you in a second. But most of it I'm going to deal with some Bible texts when it comes on to Israel as a nation and what it has to do with our current situation when it comes on to Jesus and the rejection of Jesus. So that's going to be the most of what I'm talking about. But the introduction here, I'll deal with this concept here. Israel is an excellent execution, an excellent example, modern example for us to understand some of the principles of colonial countries and how their methods and operation and how they take over a country and so forth. So this is what I want to do with you here as we do our live talk program. And so notice here, the theme this week has been when they kill the prophets, thinking they got rid of the problem. We instead cherish the prophet's message and we profit from it. The more rejection, the worse they get. The more acceptance we do, the better we get. So prophets get killed for teaching things that are accepted today by us today. How true knowledge and understanding becomes lost and ignorance become concentrated. And in the second 3 quarters of what I'm going to do today with you here, you'll see what is lost. Like you will realize very quickly, or I've realized very quickly, that most of Christianity are not really familiar with many of the texts in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John that makes it very clear that there's no reestablishment of Israel. But in the interim, what we understand, or what I understand, is that Israel, and I'm going to talk to you about some of the principles of colonization. And anything else I'm going to say to you when it comes on to colonization is what I've learned from people who are historians, and almost all of them, I think, are white historians that explain the principles of colonization for what I've studied over the years. So if you listen to me say some things and it might sound a certain way, don't worry about it. Everything I'm saying is coming from those that are part of the colonial system. And I'm just checking something here. I guess I'm not going to be able to stream to Facebook today. So those that are part of that colonial system are those that as I say, I'm studying it from there, just getting a hiccup here because of Facebook, the stream somehow. Okay. So that's basically what I'm going here. So I'll move forward. I'm gonna have to edit that part out because I don't know, the stream seemed to break down there. So notice here, this is where we start now. So I'm gonna start back um in 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 Matthew chapter 23, verse 29 onwards. So we start now. So woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, because you built the tombs of the prophet and garnished the sepulchres of the righteous. and say, if we had been in the days of our fathers, we would not have been partakers with them in the blood of the prophets. So notice, if you study and see what's going on modernly with Israel, you realize that there's nothing changed. The offspring is still behaving in a certain way as their forefathers. And this is what I'll show you. And when we look at the colonialism, you'll find that the colonialists never really changed. The principles are still there. And if you think about it, this is so profound what Christ is saying, that the children are doing like their parents. Because when you look at, and I'm going to go through the study of Pilate and his interaction with the chief of the leaders of Israel at the time of the killing of Christ, you realize that the two players that were there are still here: the Jewish leadership and people, and the Western European system. Those are the two people that are there representative, and their behavior has not changed. It's the same behavior, and one is influencing the other to do some things that are not morally right. That's important. So this text stands in our modern time. This is not an Old Testament text. This is current events. It is fascinating when you watch the news, and you can see this all over news. I watch a clip. I go and search the name of the person that's talking, and I find their Wikipedia page, and then I realize, oh, they're Jewish heritage, but they work for the State Department, the CIA, the executive part of the government. They control the government and they influence the Romans. Nothing has changed. It's the same narrative. This is amazing when you understand it. So we continue here. So notice here, wherefore ye be witness unto yourself that you are the children of them which killed the prophets. Fill ye up the measure of your fathers. Ye serpents, ye generation of vipers, how can you escape the damnation of hell? Wherefore, behold, I send you prophets and wise men and scribes. Some of them ye shall kill and crucify, and some of them shall ye scourge in your synagogues, and persecute them from city to city, that upon you may come all the righteous blood shed upon the earth, from the blood of righteous Abel unto the blood of Zachariah, the son of Berechiah, whom you slay between the temple and the altar. Verily I say unto you, all these things shall come upon this generation. O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, thou that killest the prophets, and stonest them which were sent unto thee, how often would I have gathered thy children together, even as a hen gathereth her chicken under her wings, and you would not. Behold, your house is left unto you desolate. For I say unto you, ye shall see me henceforth, you shall not see me henceforth, till ye shall say, blessed is he that cometh in the name of the Lord. So you shall not see me after this until you say, blessed is he that cometh in the name of the Lord. So this is the Lord doing, right? And this is how the Lord does his business. The Lord do what he has to do, and how the Lord does this is by sending prophets. But as many as the prophets that the Lord sent to Jerusalem, what will happen is they will just kill those prophets. And so I think I'll just go ahead, and I'll be just trying to see if I could stream to Facebook, but it's not working, so I leave it alone. So let's now go to this thing. I want to just introduce this thought to you. This would be our old presentation itself, but I want to introduce this thought to you, and then I'm gonna leave it alone, and then I'm gonna move to the main thing that I want to talk about. So remember, my topic again is Israel is an excellent execution of the principles of colonial countries. So colonial countries are the 7 Western tribes or kingdoms in Western Europe, and they were the primary pushers and executors of colonialism. And at one point, they take over a major part of the world, and they would do colonization, or they would do slavery and war and all of that stuff. But one of the things that I want to point you out to, this is from my years of reading books on slavery and colonization, what I've learned and realized modernly, the process still works the same way. And you can see everything I'm going to say to you here, you can see it. If you have time, study how they did New Zealand, Australia. But primarily, one of the main things you can quickly find how they executed colonization in Hawaii, the island of Hawaii, which is one of the American states, and how the American government did that, and how brilliant of a plan they did it. Not that I endorse it, but I'm just saying. So when you understand how they did Hawaii, and you get this concept of how they execute a why. You can quickly study that and go watch some documentaries on that from an American perspective. And then you can see how Israel is an excellent execution of colonization and how they did it. So here's some of the quick principles. The last probably two is more generic, is more applied to what happened in America. But the first set of principles are some. There's much more, but there's a some. You can read about this online. So the colonialist tactics. So one of the colonialist tactics, one of the first one I note over my years is that they move in and build up numbers. So they'll move into an area, and at first they went into the area and they just go there for whatever reason. And then they start to build up numbers. So the inhabitants probably think, okay, they're just moving amongst us. They're not so, they don't understand their philosophy. That is an entrenched philosophy. This is how they do it. This is the process. They will go to an area first, set up a little enclave, a little colony. Not the whole island or the whole place is not a colony. It's just what they set up is just a little encampment. And after they set up their encampment, then they start to bring in more people. Then the natives will be like, okay, what's going on? Is this, you're permanent? What's going on? But what the natives will understand is the intention is to take over the whole place. So when you study modern Israel, you see the same principle that's the way they initially work it out until they broke out into war. So they move in and they build up their numbers slowly. And after that, they aggressively take more land. All right. So it starts by, okay, we're just here to trade. We're here to get some beaver, what you call it, skin or whatever. And then after that, they just they build up like somewhere that it can be fortified. And then now the war, famine, and bloodshed starts. And this has been true. Recently, I went down to, what is the place called? Virginia Beach area. And on Virginia Beach, there's a state park that's called First Landing State Park, and that's where the settlers first came from Britain, and they landed, and then this upstream, further upstream, they set up the first colony or the first fortress or whatever you call it. And so the guide that we were with, and they were explaining the process. As I say, everything I'm saying here is just what I've learned from Americans themselves of how they did it. So they set up the colony, and all of a sudden it slipped my name. It's a very famous colony, and people go there for vacation. It's like Williamsburg area, Colonial Williamsburg. That was another area I toured. But before they did that, on the banks of the river, whatever that river is, I can't remember if it's a Chesapeake. They set up the colony, and what they said, they set it up, and then the Indians. This is where you get the Pocahontas fame. If you've ever been there, you hear the historian talk about it. They tell about Pocahontas and how they did that with the chief daughter and all that. And then some people believe they kidnapped her, and then she ended up in Europe and died young, probably 21 or 20 something. So anyhow, but they set up the colony, and then the Indians thought they were just there to trade, and it was a temporary colony. So when you understand that process and you understand how to do this, the intention is never, the intention is permanent because they're not going back to Europe. They're trying to find somewhere to escape all that plagues and pestilence over there. But the intention is a permanent encampment and it's a permanent setup. They intend to take over the whole place. But at first they come in and, oh, we're just here to trade. And then, oh, we're just building a church here. We're building some buildings. So the Indians start to attack. And then more come, more fortification and, the famine and all that stuff. I'm sure you've been there, you probably learn about the history of that. So fascinating history. But you realize when you understand that history now and you start to look what happened in Australia, New Zealand, Hawaii, all of America, whatever, you say, wait a minute, this is the same, across the Caribbean. It's always the same policy. But the people who are there, since they don't understand that mindset from Western European Rome, whatever that mindset, they don't get it. So they think, oh, they're probably just here to trade. Oh, probably they're just building a settlement. Oh, they're building a fort. Oh, we're gonna die. But that's the process. And so when you look at it, it's a slow creep, and then it's and they bring in more people. So this is why, if you understand this, you understand why Protestant pastors who are Western in their thinking will pay Jews to go leave America and live in Israel. But everyone that they send, every family, if Jewish family they send, will displace somebody that was living there before. But that's the process. So that's why both of them work together so good because it's in the same mindset. Notice here another important thing that I've learned over the years from colonialists, how they do. They will sign treaties that they have no intention to keep. So if you know the story of the native Indians, they were sitting ducks because every treaty was there was no intention. The intention was to make America America, what it is currently. So the natives would think, oh, they're here and they're signing a treaty and we're going to trade together. No, it's just until enough fortification come and then they'll just destroy everybody and then take over the place. So if you look at what Israel been doing, they'll sign. There's a famous picture with I think Yasser Arafat. I remember I saw this when I was a child or young. Yasser Arafat and I think Sharon or one of the prime minister of Israel and Bill Clinton signing some accord. And then Trump will come, and then different people will come. Democrats, Republican, they'll come and sign an accord. There is no intention for this. There is no such thing as an accord. There is no signing nothing. The only thing that's gonna happen is that it's just the signing of these accords is just a sham and a scam until they get taken over. This is the history. This is not my opinion. This is just what happened. This is past history, so it can't be changed. Whatever I'm saying here, it's not changeable because it's happened. This is how it is. Every country they're signing the only reason for the agreement is to keep whoever the natives at bay until they have enough reinforcement, enough people come, and then when enough people come, then it's war. And then they say, we're breaking the treaty, we have to do a new treaty. Then they take more land. And then they say, okay, let's sign a treaty for this new one. And then they say, okay, let's take more land. And then, because more people are coming in from the home country, they're sending in more people, and as more reinforcement come, they say, okay, we're strong enough now, we can take this one over and that one over. And there's been a story of native Indians and stuff like that. So this is just facts, and how they do it. So very, very, very ingenious, because remember, the people, they don't know that this is a policy from all the 7 Western tribes or kingdoms. They always do it like this. So Israel is a perfect example to understand colonization in our modern time. So we know that it's still going on. And who backs it? The same group of people, because that's their policy. But most native people around the world, I think they still don't understand. When they see them coming, there's no intention for a treaty. Notice here, they'll state these 3 things. This is my summary of what I understand. They'll say, we are here, but they don't state why. But if you understand the history, no, they're here to stay. So there's no 2 states agreement. I always hear people talk about there need to be 2 states. Even people that support the Palestinian, I would always think it's funny. People who support the Palestinians will say that we should have a 2-state agreement. They don't understand colonization. There is never a 2-state agreement. This is not what there's no history for this. So this will be the first time in the world, in the history of colonization and colonialism, that there's a 2-state solution. The aim is always a 1-state solution. So they'll say, we're here. So if somebody said, what does that mean, Lloyd? We're here. Well, we're just here. We're not telling you why we're here, but because you don't know. Okay, you don't understand the history. And we are here to help. So they'll say, well, we're here to help. So you mean we're here to help? Oh, you never, ever have, if say there's a hurricane hit a country, and the UN goes there, the UN represent Western Europe. The aim is for them to stay. They're not there to, they're there to help, so to speak. Or they're there to eradicate communism. And the only thing going to happen is war until they're expelled. Or if they don't expel, then they're here to stay. There's no, whatever they're fighting in, there's always something. It's always one excuse after the other. They're fighting over Taiwan. It's always something. But Taiwan is a colony. And they're here to keep the colony. They lost Hong Kong, and they're not planning to lose Taiwan. But they say, oh no, it's because the Chinese, they're duplicating our stuff and stuff, so we have to go to war with China. You see, but it's always but the issue is about colony. It's about taking up a colony. So we're here, and we're here to help, whatever the help is. Democracy over autocracy. This always is one bag of excuse, but it's always the same thing. There's no history that they'll everybody that said 2-state solution, they don't understand. Israel will never be a 2-state solution. And if it's a 2-state solution, it's only for them to build up more citizens and to get stronger militarily. And then they start again. And you can see the history. Look, if you have a time, go to Google the map of how for the last, say, I can't remember if it's 70 years or so, how the map of Israel have changed. And you look at it, you say, oh, that's an excellent execution or example of colonization. Also, we next thing they will say is we are here to stop something, right? So we're gonna stop something. We're gonna stop communism. We're gonna stop something. But at the end of the day, anything always starts. That's where that sentence is my summary of how they behave. Is that we're here, and so we're here to stop something. It's always an excuse. At the end of the day, it's going to be colonization and war. And so they'll normally go to the natives and say, pick your poison. What do you want to hear? You want to hear we're here? You want to hear we're here to fix something or stop something? You want to hear to help? Whatever it is, we're here. That's the aim. So that's colonization. Another very important, and this is probably, you could go in any history book, and this is what you see. Like one of the books I was reading on how they did slavery in Jamaica. And how they did slavery in Jamaica is that they would pick people from different countries and different tribes to be on the same plantation. They would never have a concentration of like people from Congo or people from Ghana or people from Kenya or wherever they're taking slaves from. They'll just mix and match them on the same plantation. Because what it is that it's hard for people to rise up when they're divided. So this is one of the most powerful policies of how, because you say, okay, they're in the colony now, why do people don't rise up? And that was a baffling thing to me until I started studying some other things, and I was reading that book written by, again, somebody white from England, and he was explaining how the slave master control. And this book I read, I can't remember the name of the book, I think it's behind me somewhere, but or downstairs. But this book already was written about the richest and most powerful slave master in Jamaica, and he's so powerful that the Jamaican the house that the president or the prime minister sleeps in is actually his former house. It's actually a slave master house. So it's just the difference is the prime minister moved into the slave master house. So that's how powerful it was that his house could be used as the national house of Jamaica, like the White House. But his process was this, and it was documented in his diary, that you will mix and match the slaves on the same plantation so that they fight against each other. As long as they're fighting against each other, they will not be able to gang up together and fight against the slave master. So because the question was asked, how could it be that you could have on a slave plantation sometime whites were like, say 5 to 100? And the question was, how can you control, or 5 people could control 100 people? And that was the documentation of the slave owner. He would document it that you just could make them pit them against each other. So they'll never gang up, even though the whites were outnumbered on the island. They wouldn't overcome the slave master, because it's almost like, say somebody from Cameroon want to lead out against a rebellion. Somebody from Ghana will be like, nah, I'm not going to allow that because I want to lead out. And if it's either I or nobody, and they would not work together. So this is why when you have like the Gaza Strip and then the West Bank, and they really don't work together. And if you know the history, the Netanyahu and the Israel funded Hamas, and they say funded and help sustain it to make sure they fight against the PLO. And so they would work against each other. They had cross purposes. And as long as they're fighting against each other, then you can slowly build up your inventory of people and keep taking over more land and keep whipping both of their butts. But they're thinking, well, I can't allow you, that's what, because this one is like. So this is important. So divide and conquer, that's a whole Bible study in itself. And so, because I can show you from history, Bible and stuff like that, you always divide and conquer. But it is a tactic that is most fascinating use with Western world. So like Muslims are divided in Sunni, Arabs, and Sunni and Shia, and then the Kurds. They'll never work together because they hate each other. So the Western world use it against them. In Hinduism, you have Pakistan and India. They never work together with each other. So you can just divide both of them and then basically just whip both of them. Very fascinating how they divide the world up. And that's why one of the reasons when I study these things, I say, oh, I see why they think they're superior. Because in their mind, if you're whipping everybody with this colonialist mindset, then I can look at it in the news and actually laugh at it, because I say they'll never work together, and they have them whipped because they don't figure it out that at the end of the day, they'll prefer that nobody move forward as long as It's better the Caesar stays in power than we anybody moves forward. So this is part of the system. So some rewarded and some punished, right? So some are rewarded and some punished. And this is another thing too. You can keep one person subjugate to the other because like part of what I was gonna say next is the caste system and some more worthy. Because with a caste system, what it is, there's the half white, and then they keep control of the darker skin. So in India, they perfected this. The caste system was probably one of the most. India would be a very good study of how they can keep the system. So whoever is the half whatever kids, then they'll stay with, they stay with the white master or the Iranian whites. The Iranian would be the whiter people in the society. And they do this, and this is a masterful plan how they execute this and just keep them at bay at each other and they can never move forward. And you see the same thing in almost every colonized nation you go. The lighter skin is more powerful, and they have, they'll work more with Western powers because they have more of a heart connection. So this becomes part of the process. And one of the things I was reading on Wikipedia, they were talking about that everywhere there would be popped up like whole groups and sometimes even whole islands of people that are just mixed race people, what they call the hybrid people, and they more sympathize with the West and stuff like that. So they'll give them a reward to stick with them. So that's what Israel is. Israel is just like basically a spoiled child that the Western powers just give them reward. As a matter of fact, I say this to you that people will say Israel is a powerful, rich nation. Just think about it. How rich could you be if somebody subsidized you $3 to $4 billion every year for the last 50 years or so? How rich could you be? And how rich are you really if you're subsidized? You're on a shoestring because you're important for the divide and conquer in the Middle East. People fight about you. And so as long as they're fighting about you, then nothing can't move forward. So very interesting. So the caste system is a big part of this. So on a slave plantation, they will have like the lighter skinned slave and they'll keep in check the darkest enslaved and so forth. Then the other thing that was important, that was one of the most sad thing to read, the inventory of slaves, say in Jamaica, were primarily women. So when I was growing up, I thought inventory of slaves were primarily men. Another reason why they could do the 100 to 1 is that they would have more women and then they have studs, and the studs would impregnate the women. And so it was hard for revolts because they needed men, but the men all the time, they would have them do the more nicer jobs like carpentry, metalworking, blah, blah. So they were more favored. And then they would have some men in the field, but they were a minority. So it was hard for them to rise up because the favored ones were primarily men. And then now the sad reality was the women were the ones. I thought it was men. But according to his inventory, it was the women that was cutting the canes. So they were brutal to women. So I always find it interesting when I'm watching Westerners talking about uncivilized behavior and how barbaric this group is and how barbaric that group is. And I'm thinking the whole process of colonization was and still is the most barbaric thing that you can see executed. So the barbarism. I know you never have a Westerner say, 90-something% I would say are more for watch, will ever say that the true definition of terrorism applies to Israel. They'll only say apply to Hamas, but true definition of terror. Notice they boast about how Mossad agents go around and murder people, and then they'll say only Hamas murder people. I'm not talking about murder people in Israel and Palestine. I'm talking about around the world. They're executioners of people. These are not really state agents. They're really like assassins. But this is what happened, and they boast about it as if it's something to be proud of. So, but the caste system was so brutal, and the system was so brutal that it would mostly enslave female. And another thing too, when I've heard people think in Western countries think, like say for instance, I'm talking about Jamaica because I've studied on this a little bit, but in Jamaica will be very anti-homosexuals. But a problem with that is that the slave owner will sodomize men, not just raping women, they were sodomized men. So it became a stigma in the country during slavery, and the country came out of slavery and had like a very negative view of especially a white male sodomizing or raping or anal sex or anal rape to men. So this was a system to keep them down, right? You see, so it's brutal and uncivilized because basically what you do, you emasculate or demasculate or emasculate men by sodomizing them. So this is what the type of stuff going on. So you see this type of stuff is the aim is always to bring down. So some are targeted as fanatics and extremists. So you will say, this is the question that I've never heard anybody that is reasonable. Like people are crazy and they'll say anything, but this is what I'm gonna say to you. Notice this. One of the things that was making slavery and the colonized system a problem is that because the people were so brutalized that ever often a slave, almost always men, one or two time women, will rise up and massacre everybody on the slave plantation, every white on the slave plantation, the women, the kids, and the slave owner. And the question is that an immorality when somebody is being colonized and being brutalized and they rise up and massacre? Because notice in America, I can't remember his name, but one of the most famous person in America that's a slave that rise up and he started to push for this emancipation, and he rose up, I think, 1833, which was the beginning of the 10 days that lead up to 1844. I can't remember his name, but anyhow, it's a slave that rise up. You can know 1833 about there. He rose up, which was interesting because you rise up on the moment the clock struck, prophecies start. Well, one of the most powerful event that happened was a slave rising up and wiping out a plantation of white people. So the question somebody would ask, okay, is that wrong for the slave to do that? Is that an immorality? Somebody that's kidnapped and being treated a certain way and is being demoralized and so forth and so on. Well, this would happen multiple times in Jamaica. And the sad thing about it, I remember reading, interesting thing is that most of the national heroes were actually people who rose up against slavery. So just imagine, that's what we were taught growing up. They taught us that the heroes of the countries are people who rose up and wipe out plantations and wipe out people and actually force Britain. They say it was Wilberforce, but it was the amount of massacres that they forced Britain to give up slavery. But this is again is what they were writing, but they don't say that because they don't want to give people any idea. So this is when you do, but they will normally say somebody who does that is extreme, sure, but they don't say the slave owner is extreme. You see the point there, the historical point. Another important thing here, man, this take me so long. My technical problems at the beginning. So anyhow, civilized against the uncivilized. So notice colonization was built upon that idea. We're going to the barbarians and we're going to civilize them. Very interesting, right? And you see this throughout history, and you see this today. They'll say these people are barbaric. Easy to say because, as I say, a person that is sodomizing men and having women in cane field and blah blah blah. When the slaves rise up against them, who was never educated, never whatever, was oppressed, beaten, raped, all that type of stuff, rise up and wipe out the family. Is there somebody on the planet? I know you can find them on different CNN and MSNBC, but is there a reasonable person on the planet who said that is something happened? Like was there even anything happened? I mean, this is why. But there's oh no, it's a civilized against uncivilized. But who is uncivilized, and who is civilized? Notice here, black people are hungry. I put that one last in there because it's just something I've heard from I come to America. And so if I ask you, and I wish I could be able to ask the president of the country and all the last presidents, even Obama, if somebody is kidnap you, brutalizing you, raping your mother, raping your sister, raping your uncle, your aunt, raping you, are you angry? And they'll say, "Oh no, what it is? Are you have? Is there some hard feelings?" No hard feelings. Because I know Bible and I know God never slept and God always take care of the business, and that's the history I study also. And I realize, oh no, you don't need to even worry about it. God is taking care of it. God will wipe it out. But this is what they said. They said somebody flooding drugs into the black community. Black people are angry. I'm like, you wouldn't be angry? But they said no, they're not angry. So then there's no feelings. Then there's nothing happen. One of the things I want to read here, this is on the article Colonialism on Wikipedia. And this is the introduction of disease. I'm going to read part of this and I'm going to go to some Bible text here for you. So the introduction of disease. So with colonization, it was war, famine, pest. It was everything that they claim was civilization. Very fascinating how they civilized the uncivilized world. So encounters between explorers and population in the rest of the world often introduce new diseases, which sometimes cause local epidemics of extraordinary virulence. For example, smallpox, measles, malaria, yellow fever, and others were unknown to the pre-Columbian American. Half of the native population of Hispaniola, so this is Haiti and Dominican Republic, in 1518 were killed by smallpox, so half of the population. So smallpox also ravaged Mexico in 1520s, killing 150,000 Tenochtitlan alone, including the empire, and Peru in the 1530s, aiding the European conquerors. Measles killed a further 2 million Mexican natives in the 17th century. And in 1618 and 1619, smallpox wiped out 90% of Massachusetts Bay Native Americans. 90%, imagine. Smallpox epidemics in the 1780s and 1782 and in 1837 and 1838 brought a devastation and drastic depopulation among the Plains Indians. Some believe that the death of up to 95% of native population in the New World was caused by the Old World diseases. Over the century, Europeans have developed a high degree of immunity to these diseases, while indigenous people had no built-in immunity. Smallpox decimated the native population of Australia, killing around 50% of indigenous Australian in the early years of the British colonization. It's also killed many New Zealand whatever. So I'm reading this. I find this fascinating because I remember when they started with the COVID, which came from China, that was run by a lab by Dr. Fauci, so it's an American lab. There were black people who didn't want to take the vaccine. And somebody would say, oh, they're irrational. Oh, they're crazy. They're not scientific. Well, when you know the history, why would you take anything? You're scared as ever because you know the process of how the people get wiped out. Just think about this. I don't know if you've ever heard about sickle cell, but sickle cell was always told that it was always told me that sickle cell was a part of that experiment on black people. Is that true or is that false? And because of the sake of time, I can't keep going into that. But millions and millions just documented all over the world in Europe, in India, in all kind of stuff, cholera outbreak and stuff like that. It just kept you could just read about this and it's fascinating. So somebody would say, but not Lloyd, that's colonization is mark of superiority and civilizing people. In Luke chapter 13, verse 6 through 9, Luke chapter 13, verse 6 through 9. We end here, so I'm going to start back here. And whatever I'm going to do here, this is so long that I'll have to go into tomorrow with it. So Luke chapter 13, verse 6 through 9. And he spake this parable: a certain man had a fig tree planted in his vineyard, and he came and sought fruit thereon, and found none. Then said he unto the dressers of the vineyard, Behold, these 3 years I come seeking fruit on this fig tree, and find none. Cut it down, why cumbereth it the ground? And he answered and said unto him, Lord, let it alone this year, till I shall dig about it and dung it. And if it bear fruit, well. And if not, then after that thou shalt cut it down. Matthew chapter 21, verse 18. This is speaking about now the Jewish people, because the big question is, should the Jewish people be back in Israel as a nation? The Protestants of the United States, mark that very clearly. I'm saying it very purposefully. The Protestants of the United States makes it very clear that they are to, and we're going to put them there. Where did they get this from? And this is the question I want to answer today and tomorrow, by God's grace. Where did they get that from? Where is this concept that the Protestants of the United States say that the Jews weren't there for 1,900 and something years in Israel, and they need to go back and take over the land? What does the Bible say, and what happened? So notice we talk about that parable, that there was a fig tree. Fig tree is very important. As you know, when Adam and Eve sinned, the first thing that they did is make aprons of fig leaves. And so Christ came to the fig tree in parable, and Christ says, listen, kill that thing. That thing is not producing any fruit. Now, hear this story again. This is now the fig tree coming up again in another discussion later on in Christ's ministry, as Christ was about to be killed by the Jews. Notice it says here in Matthew chapter 21, verse 18 through 20. Now in the morning, as you return into the city, he hungered, so he wants some food. So Christ, I don't know if his belly was growling like me and you when we're hungry, but he needed some food. And when he saw a fig tree in the way, he came to it and found nothing thereon but leaves, and said unto it, Let no fruit grow on thee henceforth forever. And presently the fig tree withered away. And when his disciples saw it, they marveled, saying, How soon is the fig tree withered away? So here, Christ already had told a parable. If you notice what I read there was earlier in his ministry, and before this event, I should say. And then now, the parable going to meet reality and going to meet reality. So it's going to meet reality first in the literal fig tree. He comes, he look at the fig tree. The fig tree look like it has a lot of foliage. Everything looks great. But when you really come closer to say, okay, let's get something off that tree to eat, there was no fruit. All this foliage was just sucking up sun and just using up nutrients. The tree was using all these nutrients up, but wasn't producing anything. So Christ say, because this is really, Christ is speaking about the Jewish country or the Jewish people at the time, because they were not fully a country in the sense that they would have Jerusalem and some space outside of that. Christ says, cut it down, kill it. But Christ didn't cut it down. Christ just cursed it. It's cursed because it doesn't bear fruit. But yet, I know I've seen so many preachers saying, none like that. Crazy. So notice here, it withered away. Hosea chapter 8, verse 1 through 4. We're going to do all New Testament and Old Testament. We do in the Bible. What does the Bible say? Hosea chapter 8, verse 1 through 4 says, Set the trumpet to thy mouth. He shall come as an eagle against the house of the Lord, because they have transgressed my covenant and trespassed against my law. Israel shall cry unto me, My God, we know thee. Israel has cast off the thing that is good. The enemy shall pursue him. They have set up kings, but not by me. They have made princes, and I knew it not. Of their silver and their gold have they made them idols, that they may be cut off. So here Isaiah is telling us this very important thing, that you can have a nation that is set up with kings, with princesses, and is nothing to do with God. Because some people say, oh, well, America does it and American pastors does it. Sure, they did it. But is that anything to do with God? Can you show me a Bible text for that? Because we're going to look at these texts and we're going to show you that all Israel is not a nation that is supposed to be there because of God. It's just a colony, an American colony. And this is why when any issue going on in Israel, all you hear from is America. The primary country that's pushing its American pastors. So where are these American pastors telling the president and the leaders of the country that they should do this? I'm going to show you that it's not in the Bible. It's their own doing. Notice in Psalm chapter 10, verse 16 through 18, it says, The Lord is the king forever and ever. The heathen are perished out of his land. Lord, thou hast heard the desire of the humble. Thou hast prepared their heart. Thou wilt cause thine ear to hear, to judge the fatherless and the oppressed, that the man of earth may no more oppress. So when people do oppressive things, what I've learned from studying history and Bible, or Bible and history, is that, yes, for a time it seems that the oppressor are getting away with stuff because they have strength on their side. But what the oppressors don't think is that the oppressed have God on their side. And that sooner or later God's going to overthrow it. Because remember, what I was telling you about was colonization against the heathen, against slaves. Now, how could God overthrow such a thing? Because the colonizer would say they believe in God, but their actions are antichrist and like heathens. And what had happened? God just kept on overthrowing it and put a system in place that now, if you read that story about colonization, they start talking about reverse colonization. That the people that they brought to these places and they colonized the land, now these people are headed north. Who is doing that? Matthew chapter 2, verse 6. Who is doing that? Who is sending? They're like emptying out Africa and they're emptying out South America. Just think about how strange that is. It started 400 years ago where they're going south and they're trying to take over these lands. Now they're panicking because they think that it's a reverse colonization, that they even write it up like that. and these people don't have colonization in their minds. Seven Western tribes have colonization. Notice in Micah chapter 2, verse 6, it says, "And thou, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, art not the least among the princes of Judah. For out of thee shall come a governor that shall rule my people Israel." So somebody will say, "Lord, see, that's it. That's the text right here." Well, Christ came out of Bethlehem, Bethlehem Ephrathah, and Christ came as a ruler over the people of Israel, a governor. And what happened to Christ? Did they reject the governor? He came. He blessed them. And what happened? We keep reading. Jeremiah chapter 6, verse 19. Jeremiah chapter 6, verse 19. It says, "Hear, O earth, and behold, I will bring evil upon this people, even the fruit of their thoughts, because they have not hearkened unto my words, nor to my law, but rejected it." So the governor was sent, he was born, and he declared himself to be the king of the Most High. He was the son of David, and they rejected him. And so they'll say, well, okay, let's keep going. Hosea chapter 4, verse 6. Hosea chapter 4, verse 6. Notice it says here, "My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge, because they have rejected knowledge. I will also reject thee, that thou shalt be no priest to me. Seeing thou hast forgotten the law of thy God, I will also forget thy children." Keep going. As I say, Old Testament, New Testament, we show you that what the preachers are preaching in America and what they're telling their Congress people and senators and the presidents to do is they're making up kings according to their own self. God didn't send them. Matthew chapter 27, verse 22 through 25, just showing you from the Bible that all this thing over there is just a colony. It's not something from the Lord. That's this Western European thing. That's how they do their thing. It ain't nothing to do with anything to do with God. Bible doesn't endorse it. God doesn't have no instruction for it. It's just, this is what they do. As I say, if you want to learn about this, man, go study about Hawaii and how they systematically took over Hawaii. Fascinating study. And that was this template that they did over and over again. Matthew chapter 27, verse 22 through 25. "Pilate said unto them, What shall I do with Jesus, which is called Christ? They all say unto him, Let him be crucified." So who came? Jesus, the governor from Bethlehem, that was supposed to rule them. But they rejected truth, they rejected the law, they rejected all knowledge, and they rejected Christ. And then now they brought Christ to Pilate. And they said, "Pilate, what should we do with him? He's called the Christ." And they say, "Crucify him." And the governor said, "Why? What evil hath he done?" But they cried out the more, saying, "Let him be crucified." So the secular person was looking and say, "What did Jesus do? What? You want me to kill him for what?" When Pilate saw that he could not prevail nothing, but rather a tumult was made, he took water and washed his hand before the multitude, saying, "I'm innocent of the blood of this just person. See ye to it." So notice here, Pilate washed his hand of it. Because I was watching a preacher because I wanted to know when everything started kick off 2 weeks ago, what was the Protestant preachers going to say? I was watching one of them and he said, it's the Romans that killed Christ. Well, the Romans pulled the trigger, so to speak. But notice, Pilate made it very clear. Listen, he's innocent. Pilate's opinion is innocent, but they forced him. And I'm going to clarify in a second, because the Bible is going to clarify in a second. So he said, "Now I'm washing my hand off this blood because he's going to be killed because we really Palestine, we really, what do you call it? We're brutal. We're the Iron Monarchy. We'll kill anything because we really colonists and we take over countries and run them. But you're asking me to kill somebody that I'm secular and I think it's just. That's what's going on here." So who killed Christ? Protestant pastors are telling you that the Romans killed Christ. I mean, they executed Christ, but really who convicted Christ and betrayed Christ? It was Jews, the leaders. Notice here, "Then answered all the people and said, His blood be upon us and our children." Have they repented of this? I mean, I hear all this talk about the reestablishing of what I call a colony over there. That's not a nation. That's a colony of United States and Germany especially. Have they repented of this? And Britain, some people say Britain is in the lead. Have they repented of this? They're telling me that they what? I've not heard anything about they repented of this. I mean, there's hope, but the only hope is in repenting because Christ said, blessed is he that cometh in the name of the Lord. When you say this, well, I bless you. And I haven't heard this. I throw this text in because tomorrow I'm going to deal with prophecy. I'm going to try to get through the rest of this and then deal with prophecy. But I'm going to show you another very important key point tomorrow that has to do with what's going on in Israel right now. That is key to prophecy and understanding end times. But I read this to you, but I just want to take this concept of sacrifice and oblation. So when Christ died, the Bible tells us that sacrifice and oblation came to an end. All sacrifice of lamb and sheep and offerings and all that comes to an end. The sacrifice system was done. Now, why I bring this text to you? Because there's Protestant pastors are telling us that the reason why Jews need to take back over Jerusalem, especially, is because they need to do sacrifice. And I thought we all accept the fact that when Christ died, he brought an end to the sacrificial system. So they in confusion and rebellion in those churches. So notice this now. The Bible is going to tell us that when Christ died, I'm not getting into the nitty-gritty of this, but I want to show you that when Christ died, the sacrificial system came to an end. And I've studied this historically and find this to be one of the most fascinating texts in the Bible for this concept. There's other fascinating texts, but for this thing, what we're talking about here. Why? Because when sacrifice and oblation came to an end, it came to an end globally. Nobody understands why. But somehow, all across the world where they used to do sacrifice, even in what they call the Western world, for some reason, the sacrificial systems came to an end. And that's one of the things that I find very fascinating. Why? But the Bible tells us why. Let's read it to you here. So there's no such thing as going back to Jerusalem and go set up a sacrificial system. The place that they use the main sacrificial system is on the Temple Mount. It's taken over by Muslims. I believe God did that to stop them. Notice here, at the beginning of the supplication, the commandment came forth, and I came to show thee, the angel that is, for thou art greatly beloved. Therefore, understand the matter and consider the vision. 70 weeks are determined upon thy people and upon thy holy city, which is Jerusalem, to finish the transgression and to make an end of sin, and to make reconciliation for iniquity, and to bring in everlasting righteousness, right doing. That's what Christ brought in, and to seal up the vision and the prophecy, and to anoint the most holy, right? To anoint him. They anointed him. I'm reading in a second how they anointed Jesus with a crown of thorns, so shamefully. Know therefore and understand that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and to build Jerusalem, which is the second establishment of Jerusalem, unto the Messiah, the Prince, which is Jesus, shall be 7 weeks, which is a day for a year, and 62 weeks. The street shall be built and the walls even in troublous times. Verse 26. And after 62 weeks shall Messiah be cut off. That means killed. He's going to cut off halfway, 33 and a half years old, but not for himself. And the people of the prince shall come and shall destroy the city and the sanctuary. And the end thereof shall be with a flood. And unto the end of the war, unto the end of the war, desolation is determined. When something goes desolate, what happened to Israel? What we just read there. After Christ died, midway in the week. Then desolation happened, the destruction. I'm going to talk about that tomorrow. That's what I'm talking about. What happened? What are we looking for the end time scenarios? Notice here, and he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. And in the midst of the week, he shall cause the sacrifice and oblation to cease. So that means that for 7 years, the Jewish people had the last preaching to them. After that, then they will be cut off. Halfway through the week, the Christ was going to die, and he would cause in the midst of the week. Notice here, in the midst of the week, he shall cause sacrifice and oblation to cease. That means the ceremonial system and the temple system would have come to an end. Remember, Christ says, your house is left to you desolate. And after that, the sacrifice system was null and void because the true sacrifice with the Lamb of God, as John the Baptist says, died. What in Israel are they doing over there? They and the Protestant pastors. What are they doing? I don't know what they're there for. Because sacrifice and innovation ceased. There's no such thing as Jerusalem is going to be built and anything like that. But that's what they're trying. They and these pastors over there. So notice here, and for the overspreading of abomination, he shall make it desolate, even unto the consummation. And that determined shall be poured upon the desolate. It is determined and it was poured upon the desolate in AD 70, especially when it got wiped out. Let's see if I can get through this one now. 16 verses, John chapter 19. And then we pick up the rest after. John 19, stick with me here. John 19, verse 1 through 6. Because I want to read this because I want you to see what happened, where who was to be blamed for the killing of Christ and what was going to happen to them. And we deal with that more so tomorrow. And then the prophecy of what happened in the end when it comes on to Jerusalem and Israel. Because their thing is going to be glory and all kind of greatness. It's going to be war and famine and pestilence. It's not this thing going to get better. It's going to get worse. Notice John chapter 19, verse 1 onwards. Then Pilate therefore took Jesus and scourged him. That's the Roman leader. So the Italian, he could even be British as far as I'm concerned. And the soldiers plaited a crown of thorns and put it on his head. I don't think they just put it nice on his head. And they put on him a purple robe and said, Hail, King of the Jews. And they smote him with their hands. Pilate therefore went forth again and sought unto him, unto them, Behold, I bring him forth to you, that ye may know that I find no fault in him. Notice he keep on saying, I don't have a fault with him. So what happened? They say, oh no, curse our kids. And what has been the history? Somebody could say, Lord, I have a problem with this. What is the problem? Look at the history of the Jews. It's been just a bloodbath. But have you heard about them repenting? Probably individually, but not as a group. Then came Jesus forth and wearing a crown of thorns and purple robe. And Pilate said unto them, Behold the man. No, at this point, he's the man. Behold the man. All right, so important. When the chief priests, therefore, and officers saw him, they cried out, saying, Crucify him, crucify him. Pilate said unto them, Take ye him and crucify him, for I find no fault of him. He said basically, why are you going to make me do this? You do this. I don't have a problem with him. What's your problem? The Jews answer him, we have no law, and we have a law. They have no law for Jew. We have a law, and by our law he ought to die, because he made himself the Son of God. So notice why they killed Christ. The Son of David, the Son of God, as we say. They say he's not the Son of God. He make himself the Son of God. As this changed, the Protestant pastors are preaching all kind of craziness. But as this changed, notice here, when Pilate therefore heard that saying, he was more afraid. He'd be like, what are you saying to me? He's a what? He said he made himself the Son of God. Pilate like, what? We have a problem here. And went again into the judgment hall and said unto Jesus, Whence art thou? But Jesus gave him no answer. Then said Pilate unto him, Speakest thou not unto me? Knowest thou not that I have power to crucify thee and have power to release thee? Yes, because if you understand colonization with slavery and stuff like that, you really understand that they can do this. The Western European nations, they're that brutal. So you can see, he said, I can do this, we do this all the time to people. So now Christ's going to answer him. Jesus answered, Thou couldst have no power at all against me, except it were given thee from above. Therefore, he that delivered me unto thee art the greatest sin. Now, just imagine, I've seen mega church pastors, Protestant church pastors, known, famed, thousands and thousands of people that I don't think they ever read the Bible, it seems. And they'll just stand in front of the people and say, the Romans killed Jesus. But here, Christ says, who has the greater? No, it doesn't mean that Pilate don't have a sin. Who has the greater sin? Who's responsible for me to be here? You didn't bring me here. It's the Jewish people. And they're saying, they're going to kill me and I'm going to curse their kids. And they say, yeah, let's do it. Bring it on. And what has been the history? Because we could say, nothing what I'm saying here is changeable, because now the history is replete. And somebody say, oh, but they're reestablished. They're reestablished as a colony and they'll never live in peace because the behavior is colonizers. And notice here, he says, unto thee art the greatest sin. He who delivered me of the greatest sin. And from thence Pilate sought to release him. But the Jews cried out, saying, If thou let this man go, thou art not Caesar's friend. Whomsoever make himself a king speaketh against Caesar. Ouch, they lock Pilate now. When Pilate therefore heard that saying, he brought Jesus forth and sat in the judgment seat in the place that is called the pavement, but in Hebrew is called Gabbatha. And it was preparation of the Passover, and about the 6th hour. And he said unto the Jews, behold your king. Amazing. Imagine this is going on. And what is the Passover? When the lamb is slain. And it's that time. And none of the Jews thought, what are we doing? Wait a minute, wait a minute. He says he's going to die. He says the lamb. John says he's the lamb. Are we going to kill him? You see how things can go in the Bible where the people can condemn themselves and the most obvious thing is happening and they don't get it. That's why I say you could call it coincidence or you could call it spiritual. Because the two group of people here, the Romans, which represent Western European Empire, and the Jews, crucified the Son of God. Here we are now. Who are the two group big people? The Romans, represented by United States and Europe, and the Jews. And what are they doing? They're on the scene. They're on the scene. And some people say, oh, this is a big coincidence. I know. Very fascinating. But they cried out, away with him, crucify him. Pilate said unto them, shall I crucify your king? The chief priest, this is the big thing now that I came here for. The chief priest answered, we have no king but Caesar. We have no king but, I just say, the president of Germany, United States, the president of Paris, there's no Paris, whatever, France, whatever. We have no king but anybody from the Western European Empire. That's our king. Italians are our king. Romans are our king. They rejected Jesus. They're going to crucify him and they say, he's not our king. Have this changed? Has any of the Protestant pastors in the United States said that this have changed? Have they heard them, the leaders, say this? That they have a king and the king's name is King Jesus, born in Bethlehem? Because that's who's going to be the governor. You either accept him as your governor or you're not. Even for you and I, we'd accept Jesus as our governor and our king or we're dead. Notice here, then deliver him, therefore, unto them to be crucified. And they took Jesus and led him away to the soldiers. But who? They delivered them to really the Jews, the Jewish leaders. So this is important. So I say this to you. Israel is an excellent execution of the principles of colonization in our colonial countries. That's a fact. If you study Israel and how it functions, you realize it is not established by God. It's not set up by God, not in its modern way. It is really set up as a colony. And it behaves as a colony and subsidizes a colony. And that's a fact. And that's the reality as how I've studied the Bible and history. If I've heard, communicate that to me so I can readjust and be better and get better, because this is fascinating stuff. They say we have no king but Caesar. Well, we have a king, and our king name is King Jesus. That's who we serve, and that's who we believe is our king. Let us pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, I thank you for your word this day and the blessings, dear Lord, that you continue to bring upon us and the way that you enlighten us. May you be with us, we pray, as we go through the rest of this day. Thank you for being with me here for Christ's sake. Amen. Well, thanks for being with me here on Revive Reform Radio. Looking forward to talking to you again live tomorrow, where we should talk about wisdom for living. Until then, I pray that you may continue to walk with the King.